The room smelled of antiseptic and baby powder, a sterile combination that somehow equaled hope. I held my newborn son, Leo, against my chest, his tiny body a warm, solid weight against mine. His breaths were soft, little puffs of air against my skin, and in those first few hours, he was the only thing that felt real. Everything else was a blur. The exhaustion, the nurse's kind but tired smiles, the congratulations from family over the phone, and my husband, Mark. He was a different kind of blur, one that was distant and cold. He hadn't held Leo for more than a few minutes, his hands stiff and awkward, his smile tight and practiced. He spent most of his time in the corner of the room, staring at his phone, his thumbs moving in a frantic rhythm that set my teeth on edge. "Just updating my family," he'd said, but his eyes never met mine. There was a wall between us, one that hadn't been there a week ago, and it was growing thicker with every passing hour. I told myself it was stress, nerves, the overwhelming reality of becoming a father. I wanted to believe that. I needed to, because the alternative was a dark, shapeless fear I couldn't yet name. I'm just going to grab some coffee from the cafeteria," he announced suddenly, slipping his phone into his pocket. "Do you need anything?" "No, I'm okay," I murmured, my gaze fixed on Leo's perfect, sleeping face. I heard his footsteps recede, the soft click of the door closing behind him. The silence that followed was a relief. It was just me and my son. I shifted slightly, adjusting the thin hospital blanket, and that's when I saw it. His phone. He'd left it on the small bedside table, right next to my half-empty cup of water. My heart gave a little lurch. I knew I shouldn't, that a wife shouldn't feel the need to check her husband's phone, but the coldness of the past few days had left me raw and insecure. I told myself I wouldn't touch it. I'd just let it lie there. But then the screen lit up. A single message preview, glowing in the dim light of the room. It was from his sister, Jessica. My stomach twisted. I leaned over, my body aching, and read the words that would shatter my world. "He's so beautiful, Mark. He looks just like you." It was the message below it, his reply, that made the air leave my lungs. A photo of Leo, the one Mark had taken just an hour ago when I thought he was sending it to his mother. And beneath the picture, a caption of just 2 words. "Our boy." I stared at the screen, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. Our boy. Not your nephew, not my son. Our boy. It had to be a mistake, a typo, a sick joke. But as I sat there, my own baby sleeping peacefully in my arms, the phone vibrated again with another message from Jessica. "I can't wait to hold him. I love you. I love you." The words echoed in the silent room, a declaration of war I never knew had been waged. The fear I couldn't name now had a face, and it was the face of my own sister-in-law. Mark and I had met in college, a classic story of 2 people finding each other in a crowded lecture hall. He was brilliant, driven, and had a quiet intensity that drew me in. But it was his gentleness that made me fall in love. He was fiercely protective of the people he cared about, especially his younger sister, Jessica. When I first met her, I understood why. Jessica was fragile, with a sadness in her eyes that never seemed to lift. She had been diagnosed with a severe form of endometriosis in her late teens, and by her early 20s, doctors had told her she would never be able to carry a child. The news had devastated her, and by extension, her entire family. Mark, more than anyone, seemed to carry her pain as if it were his own. I remember one Christmas, years ago, sitting around the dinner table at his parents' house. Another cousin had just announced her pregnancy, and the room erupted in joyful congratulations. I watched Jessica's face crumble. She managed a weak smile before excusing herself from the table. I found her minutes later, sobbing in the guest bathroom. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her, my heart aching for her. "It's not fair," she wept into my shoulder. "It's the only thing I've ever wanted." From that day on, I made a silent promise to be her ally. I listened when she needed to vent, celebrated her small victories, and cried with her through failed IVF attempts with her now ex-husband. When Mark and I got married, I asked her to be my maid of honor. When we finally announced our own pregnancy after years of trying, she was the first person we told after our parents. She had hugged me, her grip surprisingly tight, and whispered, "I'm so happy for you, Sarah. You have no idea." Looking back, I see the chilling double meaning in those words. I thought it was happiness. I realize now it was possession. The pregnancy had been difficult. I had severe morning sickness, and Mark, once so attentive, became distant. "It's just the stress of the new project at work," he'd say. "It's just a lot right now." His protectiveness, once a quality I admired, shifted. It was no longer directed at me, but seemingly at Jessica. He spent hours on the phone with her, speaking in low, hushed tones. If I walked into the room, he'd hang up abruptly. "Jess is just having a hard time," he'd explain. "You know how she gets." I tried to be understanding. I told myself I was being hormonal, overly sensitive. I reminded myself of her pain, of the years of disappointment she had endured. I never imagined that her pain was being twisted into something monstrous. I never imagined that my husband, the gentle, caring man I loved, was feeding that monster behind my back, using our unborn child as bait. I thought I was growing a life with my husband, but he was building a fantasy with his sister, and I was just the incubator. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. Leo stirred in my arms, and I held my breath, rocking him gently until he settled back into a deep sleep. With my free hand, I unlocked the screen. Mark's passcode was our anniversary date, a bitter irony that made my stomach churn. I opened his messages, my heart pounding a frantic, painful rhythm against my ribs. The conversation with Jessica was right at the top. It wasn't just a few stray texts, it was a novel of deceit, a sprawling, detailed narrative of their shared delusion, stretching back months. July 14th, just after our 20-week scan. Mark had sent her the ultrasound picture. "Jessica, he has your nose. I can already tell. I've started a baby book for us." Mark: "Good. We'll fill it with pictures as soon as he's here." Sarah doesn't need to know. My blood ran cold. A baby book. For them. I scrolled further, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. August 3rd. Jessica: "My friends asked about the nursery. I told them we were painting it blue." "Is that okay?" Mark: "Of course. It's our son. You should have a say in everything. I wish you could be the one carrying him." I felt a wave of nausea so profound I had to grip the edge of the bed. He wished. He wished I wasn't the one. I was just a vessel, a surrogate in a sick play he was directing. The messages became more frequent, more intimate, as my due date approached. They discussed names, pediatricians, even preschools. They had built an entire life for a child that wasn't theirs to share, a life that was meant to be mine. The most recent messages were from the last few hours, while he was right here in the room with me. While I was in labor, he had been texting her updates, not as a brother, but as a co-parent. Mark: "Her contractions are getting closer. It won't be long now." Jessica: "I'm so nervous and excited. Is she in a lot of pain?" Mark: "Yes, but it'll be worth it when we have him. Just focus on that. Soon he'll be with his real family." His real family. The words were a physical blow. I wasn't his real family. I was the obstacle, the woman who had to endure the pain so they could have their prize. I scrolled to the very last message, the one that had arrived just moments ago. Jessica: "I can't wait to hold him. I love you." Moments ago. Mark's reply, sent just before he walked out the door. "I love you too. Just a little longer. Once she's out of the hospital, I'll handle the rest. We'll be together soon. Handle the rest." What did that mean? Divorce? Or something worse? Was he planning to leave me, take my son, and start a new life with his sister? The thought was so monstrous, so deeply twisted, it felt like something out of a nightmare. But the evidence was right there, glowing in the dark, a detailed blueprint of my own erasure. I felt a cold, terrifying clarity wash over me. I wasn't just dealing with an emotional affair. This was something far more calculated and sinister. They hadn't just crossed a line. They had torched the entire map of our lives and drawn a new one where I didn't exist. I took a shaky breath, screenshotted every single message, and sent them to a private email account I had created years ago for emergencies. Then, I deleted the thread from his phone. He would never know I'd seen it, not yet. The click of the door handle was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Mark slipped back into the room, holding 2 cups of coffee. He was smiling, a practiced, easygoing expression that now looked like a grotesque mask. "Hey, I'm back. Got you a decaf latte," he said, placing it on the bedside table, his eyes deliberately avoiding his phone. He hadn't noticed. My heart was a wild bird trapped in my chest, beating against my ribs, but I forced my face to remain placid, exhausted. "Thanks," I murmured, my voice hoarse. I couldn't look at him, so I focused on Leo, stroking his downy hair. Every instinct screamed at me to confront him, to throw the phone at his head, and demand an explanation for the sickness he'd been cultivating behind my back. But the messages I'd read held a chilling undertone. "I'll handle the rest." I didn't know what that meant, and until I did, I had to be careful. I was a new mother, vulnerable, and my son was the most precious thing in the world. I had to protect him, and that meant I had to play along. "He's been sleeping the whole time," Mark said, moving closer to the bed. He reached out a hand to touch Leo's cheek, and I had to fight the urge to flinch away from him. "He's so perfect, isn't he?" The words, once a sweet sentiment, now tasted like poison in the air between us. He wasn't talking to me. He was rehearsing a line for her. "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "He is!" He picked up his phone, his thumb swiping across the screen. I watched his face, searching for any flicker of suspicion, but there was none. He probably assumed the messages from Jessica had been buried under notifications from the rest of the family. He smiled at whatever he was reading, and I felt a fresh wave of nausea. He was talking to her again, right now, in front of me and our son. "My mom is asking for more pictures," he said, holding up his phone to snap another photo of Leo. "Everyone is so excited." Everyone. He used the word like a shield, a way to hide her in plain sight. I wondered how many of the photos he'd taken had been sent to her first, captioned with their private fantasies. For the rest of the afternoon, I watched him through a new lens. Every casual touch felt calculated. Every question about the baby felt like he was gathering information for someone else. When a nurse came in to check my vitals, he was the perfect concerned husband, asking about my recovery, about Leo's feeding schedule. But I saw the lie in his eyes. He wasn't concerned for me. He was gathering intel. "You should get some rest, Sarah," he said later, as evening began to settle outside the window. "You've been through a lot." The condescension in his voice was almost unbearable. He was treating me like a fragile patient, someone to be managed until she could be discarded. I nodded, closing my eyes, feigning sleep. I listened to the soft tapping of his thumbs on his phone, the soundtrack to my betrayal. He thought he was in control. He thought I was a weak, tired new mother, oblivious to his plans. He had no idea that while he was texting his sister about their future, I was planning my escape, and I would be taking our son with me. The moment the hospital discharged me, a quiet terror set in. Going home with Mark felt like walking willingly into a cage. I needed a plan. I needed an ally. As soon as we got back to the house, I feigned exhaustion. "I think I'm just going to take Leo and lie down for a bit," I told Mark, my voice intentionally weak. He readily agreed, probably relieved to have me out of the way so he could continue his secret correspondence with Jessica. "Good idea," he said, helping me carry the car seat upstairs. "You need your rest." Once in the bedroom, with the door safely closed, I waited until I heard his footsteps retreat downstairs. Then I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew I could trust completely. My best friend, Chloe. She answered on the second ring. "Sarah, how are you? How's the little guy? I was just about to call and see when I could come visit." Her cheerful voice was a painful reminder of how life was supposed to be. Tears I had been holding back for 2 days finally broke free. I choked out her name, my voice thick with sobs. The line went silent for a beat. "Sarah? What's wrong? Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" The panic in her voice was immediate. "Leo's fine," I managed to whisper, pressing a hand to my mouth to muffle the sound of my crying. But I'm not. Chloe, I need you. Something is terribly wrong. I'm on my way, she said, without a moment's hesitation. Don't move. Lock your door. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to her word, Chloe arrived, looking like a warrior ready for battle. I had crept downstairs and let her in, while Mark was supposedly on a work call in his home office. We slipped back into my bedroom, and I locked the door behind us. She took one look at my tear-streaked face and pale complexion and wrapped me in a fierce hug. "Talk to me," she said, her voice soft but firm. "What did he do?" My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and opened the email with the screenshots. I didn't say a word. I just handed it to her. I watched her face as she scrolled, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, and finally, to a white-hot rage that mirrored my own. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the phone. "Oh my God," she breathed, looking up at me, her eyes wide with horror. "Sarah, this is sick. Our boy? He and Jessica?" I nodded, fresh tears spilling down my cheeks. "For months, Chloe. They've been planning this for months. He was texting her while I was in labor. They have a baby book. He wants to handle me." "Handle you?" Chloe's voice was dangerously low. "That son of a bitch, number. We're not letting that happen." She stood up and began to pace the room, her mind already working. "Okay, first things first. You are not staying here tonight. You and Leo are coming home with me. We'll pack a bag right now." "But Mark," I started, my voice trembling. "Mark doesn't get a say," she cut me off. "He forfeited that right when he decided to build a fantasy family, with his sister using your child. We'll wait until he's asleep, and then we're leaving. He'll wake up in the morning and you'll be gone." The thought was both terrifying and liberating. Leave? Just like that? But as I looked at Leo, sleeping soundly in his bassinet, oblivious to the storm raging around him, I knew she was right. I couldn't protect him here. This house was no longer a home. It was a battleground, and I was dangerously outnumbered. Okay," I whispered, a new resolve hardening inside me. "Okay, let's do it." Chloe's presence was a balm to my shattered nerves. She was right. I wasn't alone, and we weren't just going to run. We were going to fight. The escape felt like a scene from a spy movie. Chloe and I waited until well after midnight, long after the house had fallen silent. Mark was asleep on the couch, a decision he'd made claiming he didn't want to risk waking the baby. The real reason, I knew, was to give himself the privacy to text Jessica into the early hours of the morning. While Chloe stood watch by the bedroom door, I moved with a stealth I didn't know I possessed. I packed a diaper bag with military precision. Diapers, wipes, formula, 2 changes of clothes for Leo, and the small stuffed elephant my mother had given him. For myself, I grabbed only the essentials: my wallet, my laptop, and the folder of screenshots I'd printed at Chloe's office earlier that day. Every creak of the floorboards sent a jolt of panic through me, but the sight of Leo's peaceful face gave me the courage to keep going. Safely at Chloe's apartment, with Leo asleep in a travel cot, the adrenaline finally began to fade, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Running was only the first step. To protect myself and my son, I needed more than just distance. I needed leverage. The screenshots were a start, but I knew that in a legal battle, they could be dismissed as out of context, or even fake. I needed something more concrete. I needed his phone again. "He'll have deleted everything by now," I said to Chloe, pacing her living room. "The minute he realizes I'm gone, he'll wipe the evidence." "Then you have to get it before he knows you're gone for good," she replied, her mind already spinning. "You have to go back. Just for an hour. You need a reason, something he'll believe." We spent the next hour brainstorming. The plan we concocted was risky, but it was the only one we had. The next morning, I called Mark. I pitched my voice to sound tearful and apologetic. "Mark? It's me," I began, letting my voice crack. "I'm so sorry. I freaked out. I was just so tired and hormonal. I came to Chloe's. Can I come home?" The relief in his voice was immediate and palpable. "Of course, Sarah. Of course you can. I was so worried. Just come home. We can talk this out. I'll be there in an hour, I said, then hung up before he could ask any more questions. Chloe looked at me, her eyes wide. You're a damn good actress. I've had a lot of practice lately, I said grimly. When I walked back into the house, Mark was the picture of a concerned husband. He hugged me, telling me how scared he'd been. I let him, my body rigid, my mind focused on the goal. Leo was still with Chloe, a fact I'd explained by saying she wanted to give us some time to talk alone. I just feel so disconnected, I said, sinking onto the couch and putting my head in my hands. Everything feels so different. I just want to feel normal again. Can we just look at pictures of him? Together? He fell for it completely. Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you want. I pulled out my phone. The ones on my phone are so small. Can we look at them on your tablet? You can just airdrop them to me. It was the perfect bait. To use AirDrop, his phone had to be unlocked. He took it out, his expression soft and accommodating, and began selecting photos. While his attention was focused on the tablet, my fingers flew. I went straight to his recently deleted messages folder. And there it was. The entire conversation with Jessica, which he had clearly tried to erase after my disappearance. In less than 30 seconds, I had restored the thread and forwarded the entire thing, months of messages, to Chloe's phone and my own email. This time, with a time-stamped video recording of the process. There, he said, handing me the tablet. All sent. Thanks, I said, my heart hammering. I scrolled through the pictures of my son, pretending to be emotional. He's so beautiful. I stood up. I think I'm ready to go get him now. I feel much better. He smiled, completely oblivious. I'll come with you. No, I said, my voice suddenly firm. You stay here. I need to do this on my own. I walked out the front door without looking back, the evidence secured, the final piece of my plan in place. He thought I was coming back. He had no idea I was just leaving for the last time. He thought I was coming. The confrontation needed to happen on my terms, in a neutral space where I controlled the narrative. A lawyer's office. I called Mark 2 days later, my voice calm and steady. Mark, my lawyer needs to speak with us about setting up a trust for Leo. Can you meet me at her office tomorrow at 2 p.m.? The word lawyer made him nervous. I could hear it in his voice. But the mention of a trust for Leo was the perfect lure. It was a responsible, parental thing to do. He agreed. What he didn't know was that I had also arranged for Jessica to be there. I had Chloe call her, pretending to be a paralegal from the firm. Ms. Jennings, we have some documents regarding your brother's estate planning for his son that require your presence. The bait of being officially involved, of being recognized as a key figure in Leo's life, was too tempting for her to resist. I arrived at the law office first. My lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Eleanor, had a conference room prepared. I sat at the head of the long, polished table, the printed-out stack of text messages in a neat pile in front of me. I was terrified, but a strange calm had settled over me. This was the end of the line. Jessica arrived first, looking confused but smug. She gave me a tight, condescending smile. Sarah, I was so surprised to get a call. I'm glad Mark is finally taking my input seriously. I didn't reply. I just looked at her, letting the silence stretch. A few minutes later, Mark walked in. He froze when he saw Jessica, his face paling. Jess, what are you doing here? I was invited, she said, looking from him to me. To discuss the baby. That's right, I said, my voice clear and cold. We're all here to discuss the baby, our boy. I watched the color drain from Mark's face. Jessica's smirk faltered. I pushed the stack of papers across the table toward them. I believe this is your baby book, I said. You seem to have forgotten a few pages. They stared at the printed messages, at the intimate, sick words they had shared, now laid bare under the fluorescent lights of the conference room. Jessica's hand flew to her mouth. Mark sank into a chair, his head in his hands. Sarah, I can explain, he stammered. No, I interrupted, standing up. You've done enough explaining. To each other. You've explained how you were going to handle me. You've explained how I was never part of your real family. You've explained your entire plan to steal my son and my life. Jessica started to cry, the crocodile tears of a manipulator caught in her own trap. It wasn't like that. I love Leo. I would be a wonderful mother to him. He already has a mother, I said, my voice like ice. And she is not going to let a delusional, cruel woman anywhere near him. You preyed on my husband's weakness. And you, I said, turning to Mark, you let her. You stood by while she planned my erasure, and you helped her draw the map. Eleanor, who had been silent until now, spoke up. My client is filing for divorce on the grounds of extreme emotional cruelty. She is also filing for a restraining order against both of you. Any attempt to contact her or her son will be met with legal action. We have all the evidence we need. Mark looked up at me, his eyes pleading. Sarah, please, don't do this. You did this, I said, my voice shaking but firm. You built this, you and her. And now you get to live in it. Together. But you will never, ever be near my son again. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving them with the wreckage of their lies. The click of the door closing behind me was the sound of my freedom. In the 6 months since that day in the lawyer's office, the silence has been the most beautiful sound I've ever known. The divorce was finalized quickly. Faced with the mountain of evidence, Mark didn't fight. He signed everything, his hands trembling, his face a mask of hollow regret. He sold the house, the one we had built our life in, and split the proceeds with me as the settlement dictated. I heard from Chloe that he and Jessica tried to make a go of it, moving into a small apartment across town. But their shared delusion couldn't survive the harsh light of reality. Their fantasy was built on the thrill of the forbidden, on the shared secret of my betrayal. Once the secret was out, there was nothing left but two broken people who had destroyed everything for a dream that was never really theirs. They broke up within 3 months. I bought a small condo overlooking the Willamette River, a place with big windows and lots of light. It's filled not with the ghosts of a broken marriage, but with the joyful chaos of a baby learning to crawl. Leo is my whole world. He has my eyes and a laugh that is entirely his own. There is no trace of Mark or Jessica in his smile, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. I have a restraining order against both of them, a crisp legal document that serves as a shield around the new life I've built for my son and me. Sometimes, I see Mark's mother at the grocery store. She glares at me from across the produce aisle, her face a storm of resentment, but she never approaches. She knows she has no power here anymore. Chloe is Leo's godmother, a constant, loving presence in our lives. She was there for his first steps, his first word, cat, much to my amusement, and she is the one I call in the middle of the night when his fever spikes. She is the family we chose. There are moments, late at night, when Leo is asleep and the city is quiet, that a shadow of the past touches me. I think of the man I married, the one who was gentle and kind, and I mourn him like he died. In a way, he did. The man who existed after was a stranger, a hollowed-out version of himself, manipulated by a narrative of resentment and grief. But I don't let the grief linger. I look at my son, this beautiful, perfect boy who is thriving, and I know I did the right thing. I didn't just save myself, I saved him. I saved him from a life built on a foundation of lies. Yesterday, I was going through a box of old photos and found one of Mark and me on our wedding day. We were so young, so full of hope. For a second, a pang of sadness hit me. But then I looked at Leo, babbling happily in his playpen, and I put the photo away. That life is over. This one, the one with sunlight streaming through my own windows, the one filled with my son's laughter, is just beginning. I am not a victim. I am not the woman who was betrayed. I am a mother, and my real family, the one that matters, is right here in this room.